While washing my girlfriend /s underwear, I noticed a small hole. A hole burned by a cigarette butt. But I quit smoking over a year ago. The lace trim on the underwear had a tiny hole, barely noticeable unless you looked closely. With my 5 years of smoking experience, I instantly recognized the yellowish ring around the hole. It was unmistakably from a cigarette burn. My heart skipped a beat. I quit smoking long ago, and Anna Smith would never smoke. So, who could explain this? I stood frozen in the bathroom, holding the underwear, my mind racing. The more I thought about it, the more something felt off. Just then, Anna Smith sent me a message. "Henry, I have to work late tonight. You can go to bed first." Anna/s job was something I had arranged for her through a connection. She worked as a HR assistant at a private company, a relatively easy job. But recently, she had been working late often, returning home close to 10 every night. I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed she was genuinely busy. But now, something was wrong. There was definitely something wrong. Suppressing my anger, I replied, "What time do you finish? I'll come pick you up." "Oh, no need. Henry. You know it's especially busy right now. I'm not sure when it'll be done." I immediately changed my clothes and left the house, driving straight to Anna's office. Her office lights were on, and I could faintly hear voices from inside. Could she really be working late? I didn't rush in. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called Anna. "I'm worried about you going home alone. I'll wait for you downstairs." "I told you it's not necessary." "It's fine, baby. I'm already downstairs at your office." Her voice on the other end of the phone sounded different, more panicked. "Huh? Wait, you really came? What are you doing here?" "What am I doing? Of course, I'm here to see what you're really up to." I didn't say anything else. After hanging up, I hid in the stairwell. A few minutes later, Anna came out, followed by a man in a business suit. They walked to the elevator, then embraced each other. They kissed, lingering for a moment. The man kissed her while his hands wandered over Anna's body. Suspecting something was one thing, but seeing it with my own eyes was another. Rage took over, and I lost all sense of reason. Blood rushed to my head. And I instantly wanted to storm out and strangle both of them. Then I heard the man laugh. "Your boyfriend Henry really cares about you, huh? Ugh, don't mention him. He's such a buzzkill." Anna's words hit me like a cold shower, momentarily holding back my urge to storm out. The man continued with his flirtatious remarks. "How about you tell him to wait for you downstairs while we continue to make love? Are you crazy? He could come up at any moment. Last time he called you, didn't we already try it once? What's there to be afraid of? God. You're so bad. I hate you." The urge to kill them both grew stronger. Just then, the man turned his face toward me. And then I saw him. It was him. I recognized the man from a photo Anna had posted on social media of a company event. He was George Miller, the vice president of the company. He looked like an upstanding guy, but knowing Anna had a boyfriend, he still had the audacity to do something so shameless. He was truly scum. And the way he spoke, it was obvious he enjoyed messing with me, treating me like a fool. For a moment, I didn't want to confront them directly. I could tear through the thin veil between us, but that would only lead to an argument or a fight. Then I'd break up with Anna, and that would make it too easy on them both. Before Anna got into the elevator, I secretly snapped a photo of them holding hands. I took the stairs down, and by the time I reached the bottom, Anna was waiting by the car. I pretended to know nothing. "I thought you would take a long time, so I went to the bathroom on the first floor." Maybe I'd spoiled their little plan, because Anna subtly rolled her eyes, then teasingly said, Well, I finished early. Hurry up and open the door. I'm freezing. She played the part of someone exhausted the entire way, closing her eyes and pretending to rest. Good. I didn't feel like talking to her. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from asking her why she was doing this to me. That night, while she was asleep, I sneaked a look at her phone. The more I read, the angrier I became. Anna had been seeing George Miller for months. She'd started at the company in June, and by August, she was already flirting with him. Not long ago, they'd crossed the line, using late-night work as an excuse to openly have an affair at the office. And while they were sneaking around, I was at home, like an idiot, cooking dinner and doing laundry for Anna, worrying about her being tired from work, concerned for her safety on her way back, imagining our life after marriage. On social media, Anna talked about me like this with George: "I'm so pretty, of course he likes me. He never doubts me and always spends money on me. Whether we get married or not is still up in the air. And my parents always want me to find someone richer." She also said, "Your wife is nothing special, she's old and boring. Why don't you just divorce her? You get divorced, and you'll break up with Henry." I couldn't believe the words coming from Anna's mouth. But the hundreds of messages in the chat log felt like lashes across my skin, every one of them stinging. And Anna was right. Before today, I never doubted her. I never asked about her schedule or checked her phone. That's why she felt safe leaving the chat records there. As I looked at her sleeping beside me, I suddenly saw her for what she really was: filthy, so filthy it made me sick. The next morning, as Anna was doing her makeup, her phone rang. She answered it naturally, saying seriously, "Hello, Mr. George. What's up?" "Okay, I'll try to get there earlier today and confirm with you." I asked, "Is there something at work?" "Yeah, my boss is rushing me to get there. There's a lot going on, and I'll probably have to stay late again today." I looked at her bright red lips and tight, figure-hugging skirt, pretending to be concerned. "Maybe I should ask someone to help you find a new job. I can't stand seeing you so stressed." "Don't." Anna snapped loudly. Then she quickly realized her response was too strong, and awkwardly smiled. "I mean, it's no big deal. I'm still young, so it's fine to work hard. Plus, you've already used a favor to get me this job, so I have to think about you, right?" When she left, she leaned in to kiss me. But as I remembered that this was the same mouth she'd been using to kiss that scumbag last night, my stomach churned. I quickly pretended to search for something to avoid her. Anna had it all planned. When George called, if I was around, she'd call him Mr. George. If I wasn't there, she'd call him darling, baby, and even called him daddy on social media. It was obvious how shameless they were in private. George had clearly planned to call at this time on purpose. Maybe it was to flirt right in front of me, enjoying the thrill of it all. Well, if they wanted to play these games, then I'd play along with them all the way. I dug into George's background. It turns out he wasn't just married, he had 2 kids. His wife, Emma, quit her job after having kids to stay at home and take care of the family. His parents were retired university professors and lived in the same neighborhood, helping with the kids. I hired someone to follow him for a while and discovered another of George's secrets. He was still secretly seeing his married ex-girlfriend, Emily. Every time they met, they went straight to a hotel. From the outside, George seemed like the perfect family man, with a successful career and a happy home. But what was the truth? The more I uncovered about George, the more it worked to my advantage. I gathered all the evidence and spent some time tracking down the contact information of George's family, his ex-girlfriend Emily, and her husband, Terry. I can only say that in this age of big data, no one has any privacy. One day, Anna lied again, claiming she had to work late. I responded coldly, okay, don't forget to eat. If you get too hungry, I'll be upset. Henry, you too. Be sure to eat. That evening, I parked outside her office. Using a new phone number ID set up beforehand to text George's wife, Emma. Does your husband always say he's working late? You should pay attention, don't be kept in the dark. Almost immediately, she called me. I hung up. She texted, who are you? What do you mean by that? He's been seeing his ex-girlfriend for a long time. That was all I said. No more responses, no matter how much she asked. For a woman whose entire focus was on her family, planting a seed of doubt about her husband was enough to make her start questioning. I waited calmly in the car, and sure enough, a little while later, George came rushing out. He looked nervous, running toward the parking lot, frantically talking on the phone, trying to explain something. I couldn't help but laugh. The way he was panicking was just pathetic. Anna followed behind, looking constipated. When she saw him leave, I stepped on the gas and drove off. Emma might have been just a housewife, but she wasn't someone to be underestimated. Her parents ran a business locally, and she had 2 older brothers. She'd been pampered growing up and had quite the fiery personality. George had been tangled up with his ex, Emily. And after my little tip-off, Emma seemed ready to investigate. George, realizing he was in deep trouble, had to lay low for a while. Not only did he start coming home on time every day, but he also stopped chatting with Anna late at night on social media. This drove Anna mad. Like all mistresses who want to take the wife's place, Anna despised the original wife. She texted George, "What's so great about being stuck with that old woman? She's old and fierce. Don't you think I'm better than her?" Ha, how naive. George was a married man, and as long as his home life was stable, he was happy to have fun outside. Home was home, fun was fun, he kept them clearly separate. But as I said, I was going to help Anna along. Otherwise, how could the plan move forward? To stir things up, I completely reversed my attitude toward her in the past few days. Whenever we argued or had a disagreement, I no longer backed down. I often made her so furious, her face would turn red. "Henry, you're yelling at me? You actually dare to yell at me?" "Yell? That's nothing. Honestly, I should be slapping you. Was everything you did for me just a lie? Men are all the same. Once they get what they want, they don't appreciate it." "I don't appreciate it? When you're insulting me, did you ever stop and think if you even deserve to be appreciated?" I let her vent all she wanted and didn't even bother to try and calm her down. I shrugged and said, "Suit yourself." Furious, Anna's desire for revenge grew even stronger. In the middle of the night, while I was asleep, she sent George a flurry of messages. She even threatened him, if he ignored her again, she would go directly to Emma. This scared George. And after being under Emma's watch for a while, he was feeling the pressure. So they came up with a plan, a business trip. As soon as Anna entered the door, she headed straight to the bedroom to pack, her excitement completely obvious. "Henry, our company just scheduled a last-minute HR training, and I have to go to San Francisco on a business trip tomorrow." I pretended to be surprised. "Oh? How long will you be gone?" "Just 2 days." I feigned concern. "Anna, Don/T you remember? Tomorrow/S Saturday, we're supposed to have dinner with your parents." She was too busy rifling through clothes to even look up. "A meal can be had any time." "Henry. This training is a rare opportunity, I can't miss it." I smirked. I was actually relieved to have the chance. Anna and George were clever enough to go to great lengths to meet up. George had set up the business trip to avoid Emma finding out, but had only be gone on Friday and back on Saturday. Anna, on the other hand, was lying to me about the trip. She was planning to spend the entire weekend with George in a hotel. I found the hotel reservation in her text messages. George's every move was being monitored by Emma now, so Anna had to handle everything. Even booking the hotel herself. I also found out she'd bought a set of incredibly sexy lingerie, which she'd secretly packed into her suitcase. She'd never even worn it for me. The next day, Anna insisted I not drive her to the airport, and I didn't press the issue. She kept saying she'd miss me, but I could tell her mind was already elsewhere, eager to meet her lover. After she left, I wasn't idle either. I went straight to Anna's parents, the Smith couple's house. Their place was less than a 2-hour drive from Los Angeles. The Smiths didn't have steady jobs, and Anna had a brother, Pete, who didn't work either and spent his days glued to video games. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Anna doesn't know I'm here, but I actually came to talk to you. I plan to propose to Anna. Mr. and Mrs. Smith exchanged a look, their smiles far from warm. Henry, you've been dating Anna for over a year, so it's about time you started thinking about marriage. But marriage is no small matter. I quickly assured them, I understand. Marriage is something that needs careful consideration. Don't worry, Anna is a wonderful girl. And I'll show her all the sincerity in the world when I propose. Mr. Smith's eyes lingered on the gift I'd brought. As parents, we don't ask for much, just that our daughter finds a sensible man, someone who values her and treats her well. That sounded about right. What did sensible and values mean? Wasn't it really just about whether the man had money? If that was all they were concerned about, the Smiths wouldn't have been beating around the bush with me. I smiled. Mr. Smith. You're absolutely right. You and Mrs. Smith can rest assured, I promise I'll make Anna happy. They seemed satisfied with my vague response. I was having a pleasant conversation with Mr. and Mrs. Smith when I heard the sound of someone playing video games from the bedroom. I knew it was Anna's useless brother, Pete. Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, I don't think it's good for Pete to just stay at home all the time. Mr. Smith shook his head. We've found him several jobs, but he turns them all down. The easy ones don't pay enough. And the well-paying ones are too much work. He just sits at home all day and drives us crazy. I have a friend who owns a company and is looking for a driver. The job is simple, just picking up and dropping off clients, and the pay is good. The hours are flexible too. How about I ask him if Pete can take the job? Mr. and Mrs. Smith both grabbed my hand, their excitement palpable. Really, Henry? If you can make this happen, you'll solve a huge problem for us. Mrs. Smith's voice rose by an octave. I've always said Henry's a reliable man. You can trust him with Anna, no doubt. Such a dependable guy. They insisted I stay for dinner, but I politely declined. My schedule was tight, and I had more important matters to attend to. I arrived at the hotel Anna had booked at 10 p.m. My people had been waiting there since early morning. After Anna checked in the afternoon, she sent me her room number, 8402. I immediately forwarded the number to someone else. I can only do so much. Half an hour later, a man wearing glasses and accompanied by a burly guy entered the hotel. I watched from the staircase as the man, pretending to be a hotel staff member, knocked on the door of 8402. When the door opened, the burly man kicked it in. Then Anna's terrified scream filled the hallway. It wasn't too late yet, and many people were still awake, rushing out to see what was going on. I blended in with the crowd, discreetly recording. George and Anna were both disheveled, panic written all over their faces. The burly man, towering and strong, easily overpowered George. The man suddenly pulled out a baseball bat. Dare to cheat with my wife? I'll kill you today. The bat struck George's stomach with a sickening thud. And the burly man kicked George between the legs. George screamed, clutching his groin and collapsing to the floor. It hurt, just hearing it made me cringe. But it was satisfying, watching it unfold was pure pleasure. The onlookers stayed back, too entertained to intervene. The gossiping masses didn't need any prompting to jump to conclusions. George's nose was bleeding heavily as he lay on the ground. Anna huddled in the corner, screaming and frantically trying to wrap a towel around herself. She watched as George was beaten to the ground, curling up like a shrimp. Trembling as she weakly threatened, "Who are you people? If you don't stop, I'll call the police." The man laughed. "Go ahead and call the police. When they get here, I/LL just tell them this guy/'s been soliciting prostitutes." When Anna heard herself being called a prostitute, her eyes turned red with rage. "You're the prostitute, you idiot. Your whole family's a bunch of prostitutes." The man didn't back down. "What, you're not a prostitute? This guy's got a wife and kids. Are you his wife? Are you? If you are, then call the police." Anna had no reply. George, lying on the ground, panicked as soon as he heard "call the police" and hurriedly spoke up. "No. Don't call the police." The crowd of onlookers grew even more excited. Anna, embarrassed and furious, had no clothes on, so she could only shrink into the corner, desperately grabbing the bed sheets and covering herself. The man wasn't just anyone, he was Terry, the husband of George's ex-girlfriend, Emily. A man who shared my misfortune. Yesterday, I'd sent Terry the photos of George and Emily at the hotel. I told him that if he wanted to get back at George, I could help. As long as he didn't go too far. George would never dare to call the cops. That's how we got to this point. George didn't want this incident to blow up. If it did, the story of his business trip would fall apart, and his multiple affairs would be exposed, destroying his reputation. After Terry had enough, he grabbed George by the chin, forcing him to promise he would never contact Emily again, before finally letting him go. Seeing George kneeling and begging for mercy was incredibly satisfying. On Sunday morning, Anna returned home dragging her suitcase. Looking exhausted. A fresh hickey on her neck stood out glaringly. "Anna, back so soon? Why didn't you tell me?" "I would have gone to pick you up," I said, feigning innocence. Anna lied smoothly, not missing a beat. "The training ended in one day. The main reason is that I missed you, so I rushed back." If I didn't already know what she had been up to, maybe I would have believed her. I glanced at her neck suspiciously. "What happened here?" "It's an allergic reaction," she quickly explained. "I went out with some co-workers and this happened. I'm so annoyed, I shouldn't have gone. I had noticed the hickey last night. I was curious to see how Anna would try to cover it up when she came back. To my surprise, she simply blamed it on an allergy. She said a few more words to me before using the excuse of taking a shower and grabbed her phone, retreating to the bathroom. In reality, she was probably checking on George's condition. I didn't expose her right away. The secret tryst they had so carefully planned had turned into a disaster. George was terrified after being beaten up, and he had turned into a turtle, retreating into his shell. He didn't dare speak a word to Anna at work, fearful that someone might figure out what was going on. After all, he still didn't know who had blown the whistle on his affair with Emily. George even convinced Anna to delete their chat history from her phone, but thankfully, I had already backed it up. Anna was upset again by George's retreating attitude. After thinking she had him wrapped around her finger, she watched as he returned to his family. What mistress could ever accept that? While talking to Anna, I deliberately brought up George and his wife. "Anna, I think I saw your VP George today on the road. He was hugging his wife, so gentle and caring. What a great husband." I went on and on about how beautiful and graceful George's wife, Emma, was. I praised how well George took care of her, calling him such a good husband. Anna was furious. Her mouth twitching, but she couldn't let any suspicion show in front of me. She kept bombarding George with messages on social media, pushing him to give her an answer. When are you going to stop making me wait? I can't keep hiding anymore. A few days after the dramatic cheating scandal, Anna/'s company/'s anniversary celebration was fast approaching. The event was set at a 5-star hotel, and she had a solo performance planned. I volunteered to help with the stage background video for her performance. The day before the anniversary celebration, I called Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Mr. Smith. Mrs. Smith, I'm planning to propose to Anna tomorrow. Would you mind coming to witness it? I asked. Sure, no problem. Mr. Smith replied enthusiastically. I want to surprise her, so please, don't let anything slip, I warned. Of course. By the way, Henry, about Pete's job. Mrs. Smith began. I've been so busy I forgot to mention it. My friend said he'd do it as a favor to me, I explained. Henry, well, take Pete out sometime soon to thank you. Mr. Smith said, expressing his gratitude. I reassured them, we/re family, no need to thank me. The whole time, I emphasized one point. Anna and I are getting married, so helping Pete is only natural. In other words, if Anna and I Don/T end up together, Pete and I wouldn't be connected at all. Mr. and Mrs. Smith were overjoyed and eager for Anna and me to marry immediately. I even heard they had started looking at houses with Pete. Enjoy it now. The happiness you feel today will turn into disappointment when the truth comes out, and you realize it was your precious daughter who caused all of this. The next day, Anna woke up early to spend 2 hours on her makeup and styling. Then left for the celebration in her expensive dress. I didn't need to ask to know what was on her mind. At her company's anniversary, senior executives would bring their families, and Anna was determined to compete with Emma in front of George. I dropped Anna off at the hotel and then slipped inside myself. The hotel lobby was spacious, so I hid in a corner pretending to be on the phone. The staff assumed I was part of the company, so no one questioned me. After the celebration began, the boss and vice presidents took turns giving speeches. When it was George/'s turn, I sent Emma a text. George is such an excellent man, he deserves a better woman. When the love is gone, it's gone. Do you really think forcing it would make it sweet? When he held me and called you a tough, boring old woman, I honestly felt sorry for you. I'm performing today, so keep your eyes wide open and see who really belongs with him. Is it you, or is it me? Emma, who had been happily recording with her phone, instantly looked deflated after reading the message. Sorry, but these were George's exact words to Anna on social media. And this, too, was Anna's current mindset. After George finished his speech and got off the stage, he seemed to notice Emma was in a bad mood. He asked a few questions, but Emma just coldly stared at him, saying nothing, her eyes fixed on every young woman who took the stage. Then, my phone rang. It was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yes, just come on in. I'm right by the lobby entrance, I told them. Along with them was Pete. Pete, who knew I'd found him a well-paying, low-stress job, greeted me with an unusually bright smile, something that had never happened before. This kid had never respected me. Or else he wouldn't have ignored me the entire time I visited his house last time. I gave him a forced smile. Anna's performance is about to start. After it's over, I'll propose on stage. Everyone from her company will be in on it, I said. Finally, it was Anna's turn to perform. As she stepped onto the stage, the lights immediately turned romantic and soft, perfectly complementing her delicate makeup and off-the-shoulder dress that revealed her collarbones. She looked dreamy and elegant. The crowd gasped in awe, then erupted into applause. Anna glanced toward the front row where George sat. Her gaze full of provocation. It seemed to say, "See? I'm young and beautiful. Does the old woman next to you even compare?" I crossed my arms and couldn't contain my excitement. The moment had finally come. The big screen began to play the video. After a short intro, the beautiful music began to play. Anna took the microphone and began to sing, quickly losing herself in her performance. What she didn't realize was that the audience's expressions had changed drastically. Yes, ID swapped the video. The music remained the same. But I replaced the footage with a video of her and George in a hotel room. The sight of a man in nothing but his underwear, beaten to the point where he couldn't stand up, and the woman, equally disheveled, frantically screaming, this live scene of infidelity captured on camera, with the hotel's massive LED screen showing it all, was absolutely shocking. Mr. and Mrs. Smith stood beside me, frozen in disbelief. Pete was the first to speak. "Isn't that Anna? She's cheating on someone else? Stop talking nonsense." Mrs. Smith quickly interrupted him, then turned to me, eyes wide with panic. "Henry. That can't be Anna. I would never mistake my own daughter. It's absolutely not her." Pete, not backing down, shot back, "Then who is it?" Mr. Smith silenced him with just a look. I couldn't hear them anymore, my own mind a whirlwind of confusion and shock, though, of course, I was pretending. "Henry," Mr. Smith's voice trembled. "There must be some kind of misunderstanding." I glanced over at George. He was still sitting there, mouth half open, his eyes nearly popping out of his head as he stared at the screen. Seeing George's reaction, Anna probably thought he was so enchanted by her that he was entranced. She looked even more smug, feeding off the attention. The faces of the CEO and all the other senior leaders in the front row twisted with disgust, like they'd just swallowed something rotten. Anna, mid-performance, must have sensed something was off. It seemed like no one was watching her. Their focus was on what was behind her. She slowly turned around. At that moment, the camera zoomed in on her wild, disheveled appearance. Anna froze, the microphone slipping from her hand and hitting the ground with a loud, jarring clatter. I clutched my chest in mock distress. "Mr. Smith, are you still going to say that's not Anna?" The Smiths were speechless, so embarrassed they could have disappeared into the floor. Now, all eyes were on Anna and George, and Emma, his wife. George, like a whipped dog, looked like he might kneel in front of Emma any second. "Emma, it's not what you think. Let me explain," he pleaded. Emma, for now, seemed unervingly calm. There was no rage in her voice, just a cold, piercing tone. "This is what you promised me. That you would never do something like this." But what woman wouldn't be furious after seeing a video of her husband cheating? This calmness was just the eye of the storm. "Emma, let's just go home, and I'll explain everything." "Please," George begged. "One ex-girlfriend wasn't enough, now you're hooking up with a coworker. No wonder you're always working late," she snapped back. "Emma. I swear, I didn't do anything to betray you." George's stubborn refusal to admit his wrongdoing finally pushed Emma over the edge. With a sharp slap of her hand, she slammed her fist on the table, her voice shaking with rage. "Shut up, you asshole. I'll deal with your coworker first, and then I'll deal with you." The original wife's power had finally made its grand entrance. This was the way it should be. If Smith and his wife hadn't been standing next to me, I'd have been cheering her on. The CEO and the senior leaders were seated closest to the stage, so Emma made it to the stage in just a few steps. Anna recoiled in fear, but Emma grabbed her by the hair, yanking her back with a force that made the audience gasp. Which wife wouldn't want to see her husband's mistress suffer? As far as Emma was concerned, this video might very well have been Anna's own idea, a deliberate attempt to provoke her by showing it during her performance. Emma's fist connected with Anna's face. Yes, a fist. Unlike most women who would slap someone, Emma's punches were fast and powerful, like Shed trained in boxing. You think it's fun being a mistress, huh? Giving men attention while singing, thinking I wouldn't notice? How dare you seduce my husband? I'll kill you, Anna screamed in pain, her arms weakly trying to protect herself, but she had no ability to resist at all. It took a while. But eventually, people managed to pull Anna and Emma apart. By that point, Anna's face was already swollen from the blows. Though Mr. and Mrs. Smith were humiliated, they couldn't help but rush to protect their daughter. Perhaps it was the shame of being beaten so badly, or perhaps it was pure anger. Anna completely lost her composure. With bloodshot eyes, she screamed hysterically at Emma. Fine, let's settle this once and for all. He doesn't love you anymore, you know. He doesn't love you. You two are going to divorce sooner or later. All you did was have 2 kids for him. What do you think that means? George says you're just a... Anna was abruptly thrown to the ground. Everyone froze in shock. George had slapped Anna. He pointed at her, cursing, "You filthy bitch, harassing me from the moment you started working here, and now you tricked me into a hotel room. Let me tell you, the only woman I love in this life is Emma. What the hell do you think you are, comparing yourself to her?" George's eyes were full of venom, like he was ready to kill her. "I warn you, if you keep trying to destroy my family, I'd rather lose this job than let you and your whole family get away with it." Anna stood there, stunned. She looked at her lover in disbelief, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. It was hard to believe that just moments before they had exchanged longing glances and subtle signals. But now, when faced with Emma, Anna wasn't even worth a second glance in George's eyes. That last statement from George was a threat, clear and cold. The scumbag turned to beg his wife, "Emma, let's go home, please. I'm begging you." After watching the drama unfold, there was no way I was going to let him off the hook. Finally, it was my turn. I took a deep breath and rushed onto the stage, holding the bouquet I had prepared earlier. "Fuck you." I swung with all my might, landing a punch right on George's face. He was completely unprepared for it. Stumbling, he fell to the floor, blood pouring from his mouth, along with a missing front tooth. Since I had been to Anna's company several times, many of her colleagues recognized me. So when I hit George, it felt justified. I turned to look at Anna, heartbroken. "I was going to propose to you today. But I never imagined, you've been lying to me all this time. What does this married man have that's so great? Tell me what's so special about him?" I shouted, half in anger, half in disbelief. Anna, caught in guilt and fear, immediately burst into tears. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smeared, and her swollen face looked awful. I threw the bouquet at her with all my strength and, without another word, left. "Anna, we're over." After stepping outside, I finally let out a deep sigh. The pent-up frustration from all these days had finally been released. And I felt a wave of relief wash over me. What George and Anna would face next was their own doing. Oh, but I still had one last thing to do. I gathered all the evidence I had: videos of George and Emma in the hotel, videos of George and Anna in the hotel, thousands of text messages between the two of them over the past few months, including the business trip excuse, and the complete cheating footage. One copy for George/'s wife. And one for everyone in the company. The emails were copied directly from Anna/'s work tablet. Each victimized family member and every gossip-hungry bystander had a copy. Whether Emma would divorce George was none of my concern, but I was going to make sure he was ruined. Once I finished, I slept soundly. The next morning, Mr. and Mrs. Smith dragged Anna to my place, but I refused to let them in. They actually thought they could plead on her behalf. Henry, you've been with Anna for so long, you two have feelings for each other. Please, don't do anything impulsive. Mrs. Smith begged. I kept my expression cold and distant. Mrs. Smith, since you're here, let's clear things up. I thought we could become a family, supporting each other, but now, well, Anna and I are definitely over. Henry, calm down, please. Think about it again. Anna has learned her lesson. If you're really that angry, shall take whatever you dish out, just let it out. Anna, fuming, shouted, Dad. I looked at Anna, her face even more swollen than yesterday, her eyes still red and puffy from crying. I felt no sympathy. Mr. Smith, you don't need to bother. You're a man too. If you were me, do you think you could have tolerated this? I've already packed up Anna's things. You can take them with you. I'm not a trash bin, I'm not taking in any more garbage. My words were harsh. Anna trembled and glared at me. I didn't even spare her a glance. What, is there something wrong with what I said? I tossed the packed suitcase out the door, then shut it without a word. Anna's dad, seeing everything was beyond saving, started yelling at her from outside. Good for nothing. Look at what you've done. We've been worrying ourselves sick about your marriage, and what do? You lose your job and drag us into your humiliation. And Pete, don't forget your brother. His job, everything's gone because of you. Anna screamed back, you've been telling me to find a rich guy, haven't you? All you wanted was for me to get money to support Pete. Now, stop pretending to be the loving father and mother. Don't you dare talk to me like that. The sounds of hitting and crying filled the air. Stop it. Stop it. Someone's going to see. Can't we talk about this at home? Get out. I don't have a daughter like you. I watched from the security camera outside and couldn't help but laugh. I didn't say anything more to her. After hanging up, I retreated to the stairwell. Everything they had gained, they had lost. Now, all they felt was resentment toward their daughter. George wasn't faring any better either. He had to deal with Emma, while still trying to worm his way into staying at the company. But everywhere he went, people pointed and whispered. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and left, packing up and quitting. Emma demanded a divorce, insisting George leave with nothing. She wanted the 2 kids, and George had to pay a hefty child support fee every month. George Miller begged, but it was too late. His parents, the Millers, had beaten him half to death after hearing about it. The Millers, both retired university professors, were upright people. When their son made such a disgraceful mess, they didn't take his side. They agreed to Emma's terms without hesitation, only hoping to see their grandchildren regularly. At that point, Anna made her next bizarre move. Anna was determined to replace Emma as George's wife. And the Smith couple, shameless in their desperation to help their son, came up with the awful idea of having Anna fake a pregnancy. George was avoiding Anna, but she still went to the Miller's house with a pregnancy test in hand. Mrs. Miller fainted on the spot, and Mr. Miller called an ambulance before reporting the situation to the police. In front of the police, Anna couldn't lie anymore. She admitted she wasn't pregnant. George, already humiliated by Emma's demand for a divorce, couldn't hold back. He stormed over to Anna's house with some people and destroyed everything in sight. The Smith couple, furious, called the police again. The 2 families' shouting match was a real spectacle, and it kept me entertained for days. One night, Anna called me out of nowhere, completely losing it. Henry, how dare you speak to me like that? So what if I cheated? You don't know everything. Me and George, we've been together more than once in the hotel, you know? I replied calmly, I know, every time you 2 worked late. You were secretly meeting up. The overtime records between you and Mr. George, I was the one who sent them to the entire company email list. Just wanted to make sure all your colleagues knew about your affair. On the other end of the line, Anna was stunned into silence. Henry. It was you. Before she could finish, I hung up the phone and blocked her number. Anna, who always thought she could play me like a fool, was probably furious when she found out the truth. People like her always get what's coming to them. If the heavens don't punish her, I will.